Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm going to continue the series of ECU tunes and doing a deep dive on them to give you guys more detailed information on these. Um, Last time I covered the BK1, so 2010 through 12 Genesis Coupe 2.0. Today I'm going to cover the BK2, so 2013 and 14 Genesis Coupe 2.0 ECU tune. Let's get started. First things first, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and make sure you hit like on this video. That way the YouTube algorithm helps us get to the top of the search list. Um, like I said earlier, we're going to start covering all the ECU tunes that we offer. Today is going to be BK2 2.0 Turbo. So I'm going to get right into it, and we're going to go switch off the screen into our website, and I'll go through each and every option, and then I'll end the video with the dyno results that you can expect from a typical ECU tune with certain bolt-ons and things like that. All right, so let's begin. Okay, so our website, www.shopbtr.com. So this is where we're going to start. So let's start today with the Genesis Coupe 2.0T, 13 through 14. ECU tune. Okay, so there are three different types of ECU tunes. There's a show mode, custom tune, and can tune. There's a separate video that explains the difference of the tunes that you can choose from. The one we're going to focus on today is the can tune. So if you want to learn more about the three differences, I will post up a separate link above right now that you can click on, and it will go into detail about all the differences. But today we're going to focus on the performance tune, which will be either the can tune or the custom tune, and today is all about the can tune. All right, so let's get started. Let me click into that. First things first, we're going to select BK2. So 13 through 14 2.0 turbo, that's what we want. Transmission wise, obviously you select the transmission you have, not the transmission you want, okay? Octane level, 91 or 93. The reason it does not list 87 or 89, like the stock tune is able to run, once you raise the boost, once you start advancing timing, it is impossible to do so on lower octane fuel. There's just not enough headroom for us to be able to push the car for more power without detonation, unless you have the higher octane fuel. So you need to run either 91 or 93 in your car. Depending on the state and some of the cities, you really need to figure out what's around you. You can technically have 91 tune and pump 93. That's perfectly fine. But you can't have a 93 octane tune and pump 91. So if you have 93 available, throughout where you live, and you really don't plan on traveling outside of your state that much, then 93 octane tune will be the best tune to get for you. However, if you do a lot of traveling, and if you travel out of state and the states that you go to only have 91 octane available, it might be a good idea to opt for the 91 octane tune and pump 93 while you're in your area, and then you're able to travel to different states and pump 91 on the way, and on the way back and things like that. And you don't have to really worry about detonation or anything like that. Now, the horsepower power output difference between 91 and 93, it's not huge. You're looking at maybe like 5 horsepower, if that. So you're not losing quite a bit, just by jumping to 91, even though you're eligible for a 93 around your area. So don't worry too much about that. However, yes, like I said, 93 does make a little more power than 91. So that's something that you can kind of decide on what you want to do. And as I go further down the options, there's going to be other options too. If you have 93 in your area, and if you want to travel, I'm going to have other options than just selecting 91. So let's move on from there. Pop and bang option. So pop and bang. So the backfire, pops from your exhaust. This basically happens on decel above 3,000 RPMs. Okay. So it's not going to be popping while you're actually, flooring it. That's bad because that's misfiring. when you actually let off the gas, and as the RPMs come down from, let's say, like 6,000 RPMs, and it's on its way down to 3,000 RPMs, that's when you're going to hear the random pops and burbles. That's what the pop and bang option is for. Now, if you are, coasting through your neighborhood at 3 in the morning, you don't want to, sound like your car's shooting guns off while you're driving. Just keep it under 3,000 RPMs, and you really don't have to worry about it, because the pop and bang only happens above 3,000 RPMs. Another thing is, if you wanted to make the pop and bang sound more aggressive, while the RPMs are actually coming down from on a higher RPM, you can actually put your foot lightly on the throttle, and it will create a more aggressive pop. So you could definitely play with it, see what kind of popping and attention that you actually like. So that's where the pop and bang comes into play. There is no performance benefits to it really. It's supposed to work like an anti-lag system, but because it is not a full-on anti-lag, it's really, there's really no performance benefits. It's really mostly for sound and sounding cool and obnoxious. Colder spark plugs are definitely a requirement. Colder spark plugs. I will actually post a link above on why you need colder spark plugs. That way you can get educated on why we require this for you. The plugs will come pre-gapped when you actually get them. However, I still highly recommend you do check the gaps on them before you install them, just in case the gap does get changed during shipping or the pre-gap is wrong. Okay, the gap needs to be 0.028. You can pick up a simple gapper from like an AutoZone or Advanced Auto for like $1. So it's not a huge investment you have to make to gap. So make sure you check the gap on your spark plugs before you throw them in the car. All right, so cloned option. Cloned ECU option is literally what the name suggests. Cloning. So you're making an ECU, exact copy of an ECU onto another ECU. Why do we offer this option? So the reason we offer this option is if you ever want to keep your OEM ECU untuned. So we take your OEM ECU and do a full copy and put it onto a different ECU. That way you will have a total of 2 ECUs to choose from. So as we go back to what we're talking about in the octane levels, let's say you tune for a 93 octane, but we clone the ECU so that you can tune. So we tune on the cloned ECU and leave your OEM ECU alone. If you ever travel outside of state, or if you travel somewhere where that doesn't have 93 octane, all you have to do is swap the ECU to the OEM ECU, and you can run 87 until you get back to where you need to be, run that tank through, put 93 back in it, and then you could put the 93 ECU on the car again. Both ECUs will always function in the car. So you don't have to worry about, like if you install one ECU, the other ECU is like no longer functioning. Okay. You just have to swap them, and the car will act whichever ECU is running the car. The 2 options that we provide, you could either send in your extra ECU, so you could, go to a junkyard, buy another ECU, and send it in to us, or we provide you the ECU for the cloning portion. You do have to ship your ECU in. That way we can read your ECU and obviously clone it onto this new ECU. Okay, so that's where the 2 options are right there. Launch control wise, so we can set the launch control at 3,500, 4,000, or 4,500 RPMs. How does launch control work? Launch control is basically if you're sitting still, you can't have your wheels moving because it goes off your wheel speed sensor. So your wheels have to sit still, and you just floor it. If you're an automatic, you can floor it in park or neutral, and it will go to the set RPM and bounce off the RPMs, making all sorts of noise. In manual, you can do it in neutral, or you could do it with your clutch depressed, and it will do it as well. Now, is it really a feature that's going to help you launch? No, it's not. The reason I say that is because the OEM turbos are small and they spool very, very quickly. The fact that we set these launch controls at 3,500 RPMs, which is one of the lower RPMs you can set it at, you'll still sit there and spin with amount of immense torque the OEM ECU actually, or OEM turbo actually creates, especially with the tune. I will get to that down, at the dyno graphs at the end of the video, and show you exactly where the torque is coming in at and why the launch control isn't really efficient for launching, but it is great for making noise and sounding cool. So On the automatics, it is not possible to do an actual launch from it because, like I said, it's only available in neutral and park. And these cars, one, you don't want to do a neutral drop, and two, it won't let you do a neutral drop. So it's literally for noise making and having fun in the parking lot. This one is very important. Next option, key or push button start. So these cars are equipped with what they call immobilizers. So each key, the car's ECU, and the body control module has a set of codes that has to match in order for the car to start. Only cars that do not have this immobilizer is a key start model from the US. Okay? So the key start from Canada model also has this. The push button start and the key start from Puerto Rico's also have this as well. If you're unsure of if your country's car has this or not, you just have to let us know beforehand and we can check for you as well. Okay? Now, this is very important for you to actually mark down for us so that your ECU starts when you get the ECU back from us. Okay? So you can't choose, let's say, a key start model and then come to find out you have a push button car, because then if we program your ECU for a key start model, it won't work in your car. Okay? It's very, very important that you get this option correct. So make sure you double and triple check this before you check out and add the item to cart. Now, continuing on from that, pre-tuned ECU option. As it states on there, it is for US key start models only. And in this option, you do not need to send in the ECU. Now, going back to the key start or push button, like if you remember, I said the key start US models do not have immobilizers, meaning we can actually create a whole new ECU for you and send it out to you, and it will fire up right away and drive without any problems. Because there's no immobilizer, we can supply the extra ECUs like that. If you have push button or any of the key start immobilizer cars, then you would have to choose the clone ECU option if you wanted to have a second ECU. But you are always 100% required to send in your OEM ECU out of your car. That way we can get your immobilizer data off the ECU. Obviously, if you're not taking the clone ECU option or the pre-tuned ECU option, we're going to be tuning your OEM ECU and sending it back to you, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, for the BK2s, we also offer can tune for the stuffed turbos. So there's a lot of stuffed turbo upgrades out on the market right now where they take an OEM turbo and put a bigger wheel inside the OEM turbo. This usually gains around 30 wheel horsepower or so, while keeping the exterior look of the OEM turbo. And a lot of people go this route because it's one of the cheaper routes to go. So we began offering a can tune for this setup as well. So if there's no local dealers close to you that where you can get a custom tune from, you can still opt for the stuffed turbo upgrade and then get a tune. You just have to pay a little extra for the stuffed turbo tune. Okay. So obviously, if you have a stock turbo, then you just have to run. I am running my OEM turbo. All right. So that's it. Now let's just say we add this to cart. One thing I do want to point out, it will charge you shipping. Okay. So let's say it's going to Minnesota, for example. So it's going to charge you shipping. What is this shipping for? So this shipping isn't actually for shipping your ECU to us. Okay. You're responsible for that cost. So you can go to FedEx, UPS, USPS, wherever you want to go to send it, box it up and send it into us, and then pay that particular service directly. This shipping method that you're choosing is how you want your ECU to come back to you. Okay. So if you're okay with ground, if you want it back faster, you obviously do a 2-day. If you want it overnight, things like that, and you pay whatever needs to be paid. Typical turnaround time for an ECU is once we receive the ECU, it's 2 to 3 business days for us to work on it and ship it back to you. We try to turn it around within the same day of receiving the ECU most of the time, but you have to keep in mind, we do a lot of these ECUs. Like, there are certain days where I'm doing, 5 to 10 ECUs a day, and sometimes it does get pushed back. That's why we like to say 2 to 3 days before we ship it back to you, just in case it falls into a busy period like that, okay? So make sure you calculate how much time you can have your car down for before you send in your ECU. Once you do actually proceed to check out and pay for the item, you will receive an invoice in your email. You have to print that out, put it in the box with the ECU, and send it in to us. We do get ECU sometimes that just gets sent in from like a UPS store with no sender name, no information whatsoever, and we literally get just the ECU. Then we have to sit on it until that person contacts us for an update and says, we sent this ECU and under this tracking number. Then we have to hunt it down, and it just makes the process a lot longer than necessary. You'll be down on your car for a longer while because we wouldn't know whose ECU it is and what to do with it. Okay, so make sure once you do the checkout, make sure you get the invoice printed out and put it in the box with the ECU before you send it in. All right. Let's move on into the dyno graphs. That way, I know a lot of people want to know what kind of power they're going to get with this. So I am going to move on to that and finish up the video for the day. Okay. All right. So on the screen, you're actually looking at a BK2 2.0 turbo automatic, full bolt-ons with 93 octane. Full bolt-ons meaning you have an intake, full turbo bag exhaust, and pretty much the spark plug and the tune. Okay. On the BK2s, you really don't have to upgrade the intercooler system. The intercooler systems are good to handle above 400 wheel horsepower. So unless you're doing it for aesthetic purposes, there's really no performance gain to be had. So that's why the intercooler portion is not considered a requirement for full bolt-ons. Okay. Now, the red line here is going to be the OEM tune with full bolt-ons. The blue line is what you can expect to get with a tune on there. Okay, so follow along with me if you don't know how to read a dyno sheet. Basically, max power, red, so OEM ECU, you're putting down 204 wheel horsepower. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, my car's supposed to make 275. Why is it 204? This is at the wheels, meaning you're going to have drivetrain loss from your transmission to your propeller shaft all the way down to your differential, to your axles, and then to your wheels, and then down to your tires. Basically, that's what it's measuring. All the power that's actually putting to the ground. Generally, automatics have a higher loss of power compared to a manual transmission. So as you're watching, you'll notice that when we switch over to the manual transmission graph, the number is going to be slightly higher. Now, with that said, the BK2 automatic is an amazing transmission, and we also offer a TCU tune portion of that as well. So that will be covered in a later video with the TCUs. But it basically, to give you a quick gist of it, it allows for faster shipping and faster shifting, not shipping, faster shifting, and also gives us the ability to raise your shift point. So instead of being at 6,500 like OEM, we could raise that to about 7,000 RPMs. And it really comes into play when we're talking bigger turbo and things like that, where there's a lot of power left up top that you could utilize with the additional 500 RPMs. Okay, now let's get back to the graph. So the OEM tune with full bolt-ons, this car was putting down 204.35 at the wheels. After the tune, it, however, put down 270 at the wheels. So it's making almost what it should be making at the crank at the wheels after the tune. So you're looking at about a 66 horsepower gain at the wheels. Torque-wise, it was making 263. Now it's making 302. So almost 40 wheel torque just from the tune. Going back to basically how fast these turbos spool. If you look, the max torque is at 3,000 RPMs. So that's almost instant torque. You're gonna hit 3,000 RPMs like this when you're racing. So if you look, the power level does decrease as it goes towards the end, but it does have almost a near flat curve. So it's going to be a very fun car to drive. Obviously, having that extra 66 horsepower and additional 40 foot-pounds of torque is something that you're definitely going to feel, and it's going to feel like you put a whole new engine in the car. So let me move on to the manual transmissions. So let me move on here. So this is the manual graph. So it's slightly different than the automatic. The way the power comes down is slightly different because of the way the clutch grabs and things like that too. And with the manual, we can raise the RPMs without having a separate transmission tune because it's a manual, and we raised up to 7250. So let's see. See the manual OEM tune with full bolt-ons on this particular case was putting down 243 at the wheels for horsepower, 274 for torque. Okay. Now, as you can see, this number is actually a little higher than the automatic, like I said before. Automatic was at 204 horsepower, 263 torque. Manual, we're at 243 horsepower, 274 torque. The manual, as I explained before, does have less drivetrain loss compared to the automatics. That's why it's putting down a little bit more to the ground. Does it mean it's faster? Yes, it does mean it is faster, as long as the driver knows how to shift. Okay. Now, with the tune, obviously, we're going to put down even more power than the automatics, again, because there's less drivetrain loss. Okay. So we're looking at 297 wheel horsepower, almost 300. In some cases, we have seen 300 and a little over 300 as well. It really depends on the car. It depends on the situation at hand, like weather, sea level, and things like that as well. So just don't take these numbers and like engrave it into your heart. This is like an average of what you may expect to see. Okay. Torque wise, we're looking at almost 330, so 329 wheel torque. As I was saying earlier, with going back to the launch control options, if you think about it, the lowest we offer was 3,500, 4,000, and 4,500 RPMs. So this particular car is making almost 330 wheel torque at 4,000 RPMs. Okay, right here. So if we did a launch control at 4,000 RPMs, you're going to be making max amount of torque when you're launching, which means on street tires, you're most definitely going to sit there and just spin. That's why I say launch control is normally really just for noise making. It's not really for actual launching. You're not going to get great results trying to launch with a launch control because you're just going to be putting down too much power to the ground. Now, obviously, if you beef up your axles, put slicks on it and things like that, then it may actually come into an advantage for you if you're at the track and trying to do an actual launch that way. But for most of you out there doing this on the street with street tires, yeah, the launch control is not going to help you launch. It's literally there to show off, okay? The power gain, again, is very significant with the tune on the manuals as well. And I also want to point out how flat the horsepower is. I mean, it does decrease over time slightly, but that is a very, very flat graph for how small the turbo is from factory. Obviously, if you do a turbo upgrade, we can bring this up, into the 400 range with the manuals. Okay, and you know what? Let me actually link that above too. There's a turbo kit that we make for this car that will let you put down around 400 wheel horsepower, and I will link that all the way over there, in the top corner. Okay, so you can look at that as well for future reference. All right, so I hope this video really helps you out, giving your information on what the tune entails, what kind of results you can expect from your car and things like that. If you have any more questions, do not hesitate to comment below or email us at support@bloodtyperacing.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. All right? If you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.
Yeah.